Hello and welcome to the Greater Statesville Chamber of Commerce 2024 Candidate Podcast. This is where we have an opportunity to interview candidates for local, state, and federal office. And I'm pleased to be joined with our current district attorney for the 32nd Judicial District, Sarah Kirkman. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about Sarah. Give me your background.
All right. So Sarah is from Statesville. I graduated from Statesville High. I went to Carolina to journalism school. I worked in newspapers for 2 years, and then I went back to law school. I went to Campbell University to law school, and when I got out of law school, while I was in law school, I did some internships, and my favorite was at the district attorney's office in Raleigh. So I applied at district attorney's offices all over the state. I got a job here, and pretty much I've been here ever since. That was 1997. I was an assistant district attorney from 1997 until 2008, and then I became the elected district attorney in 2009.
Okay. You've got to work collaboratively with law enforcement agencies, victim advocates, victims themselves, other stakeholders. Give me an example of the collaboration and how you view that as a process, dealing with all those to try to come to some resolution.
Well, I think first, law enforcement is an important part of the process, and as part of the district attorney's duties by statute, it is to advise law enforcement officers in our district. So in my district, that's Statesville PD, Mooresville PD, Troutman PD, Iredell County Sheriff's Office, Alexander County Sheriff's Office, Taylorsville PD, and the North Carolina State Highway Patrol. So it's our job, my job, and the assistant DAs who work for me to advise those law enforcement agencies. Well, that's a big part of what we do because we want to work together to make the best cases that we can so that we can get justice for victims and so that the offenders can be punished. Now, also, we work with other agencies. We have a very close working relationship with Dove House Children's Advocacy Center, and that is aimed at aiding in prosecution of people who sexually assault children. Mm-hmm. And so I have two assistant DAs who strictly do those kind of cases, and they work really closely with Dove House in order to make the best cases that we can. Our prosecution rates have gone up enormously since Dove House came into being back in 2002, I think is when we opened our doors of Dove House. So that's another agency we work with. We work with the departments of social services a lot of times, especially back in those cases I was talking about the sexual assaults of children. A lot of times social services are involved with those families and with those cases, and so we get more information from them so we can make our cases the best that we can in order to prosecute them. I'm on the Drug Alcohol Coalition of Iredell, and that's kind of another way to look at what the issues are and what the problems are in the community. I'm just always looking at ways to keep our community safe and do a better job, in the court system and standing up for victims.
It would be wonderful to live in a place where there's no crime.
That's right.
That doesn't exist.
No.
Okay. So based on your experience and what you see, what's the biggest problem criminally that we see here in Iredell County? And second part, how are you addressing that?
Well, I guess it's hard to say what's the biggest problem because anytime you're a victim, that's the biggest, most important thing to you. So if you are the victim of a breaking and entering of your house, that's the most important crime to you. And we have a lot of low-level felonies like that, breaking and entering houses. We have a lot of drug cases that are lower-level felonies. That's where the numbers are in our court system. So we have a lot of those low-level cases. But then we do have a lot of the sexual assaults of children, rape cases. We have those. Certainly, we're not without murder cases. People think Iredell County, Alexander County, maybe that's not a place where you have violent crimes like that, but we do have those crimes. So what I do and my staff is we just have to focus on those violent crimes. We have to look at repeat offenders, trying to do the most that we can do to make sure those people get punished and they're out of society, so we're keeping our community safe. We have to do whatever we can to stand up for victims. And so with those lower level felonies, those people may not go to prison, but what we can do is make sure we're contacting the victims, finding out what it's going to take to make them, if not whole again, but close to how they were before the crime was committed.
Okay. You've been the elected district attorney since 2008?
Nine.
2009. And I know you've made a lot of changes in the district attorney's office. Tell us a little bit about some of those.
So some of the things that I've done, we've instituted H&I Felony District Court. That's those low-level felonies. They're rated from A to I, and so
Okay.
H and I are the lowest levels. So we've started doing a court just for those low-level felonies so we can do them more quickly, taking them out of Superior Court. So in Superior Court, we're focusing on the violent crimes and the more serious ones, so we can do those low-level felonies more quickly. We've taken first appearances of defendants, like after they get arrested, they have to come into court for a first appearance. We used to do that in district court, and it took up court time. Well, now we've taken that out of court. We do it in a separate room with the judge and the assistant DA and the defendant, so we're not taking up court time for that. We have a dedicated trial court for district court, so sometimes there's a case that might be complicated, might have a lot of witnesses. We wouldn't typically get to it in a day of district court, so we have a trial court dedicated to those cases to have them tried on a separate day. We have started Veterans Treatment Court in Iredell County, which is something I'm really proud of because that's a way for us to give to those people who've sacrificed for all of us a way to get to healing and recovery. We've started scheduling time slots for defense attorneys in Superior Court. So instead of everybody just coming and piling up in the jury box and waiting for their case to be heard, they have a time certain to come. So that helps court run more smoothly. We handle the criminal courts. Well, there's also civil court in Iredell County and in Alexander County. And so they have their own terms of court. Well, sometimes those cases settle and then the court is not used. The judge isn't used, the court reporter, the courtroom. So I started several years ago publishing a backup criminal list for those civil terms so that if they do break down and if they're not using those courtrooms, we can try criminal cases during those terms of court. So just trying to use every available minute of court time that we have.
As you mentioned, there are a lot of people involved in a criminal offense. Okay, you've got the offender, you've got the person who was offended, whatever it may be. And if I'm the offended and my offender gets what I consider too light of a sentence, or maybe something was dismissed, how do you communicate that to the individual who feels like maybe they weren't treated fairly? Well,
in certain cases where there are victims rights cases, we always communicate with the victims when we're going through the court process. We tell them this is the court date. It may go to grand jury on this day. You won't have to be there, but we want to let you know this is what's going on with the case. There may be a bond hearing on this day. We want you to be there if you want to be. So what we do is in those cases, if they want to be heard by the court, we afford them that opportunity to come in and be heard by the court. But sometimes it's really just a matter of communication because sometimes it's just a matter of explaining to them, we can do this with this case and that's the best resolution that we can get. And we know that from our experience and our expertise in the courtroom. If we go to trial, there's a good possibility that the person will walk out of the courtroom. So once we explain that and we explain kind of strengths and weaknesses, then generally we come to an agreement that that's the best thing to do for a case. Now, sometimes we just have to say, this is what we're going to do with the case because our ethical obligations are that we know there's not probable cause to proceed. And that's part of our ethical duty as a prosecutor is if we know there's no probable cause, we can't proceed on the case. So a lot of times we just have to explain that to the victims and explain that we're not going to be able to proceed. Sometimes it's just letting them be heard by the court. I mean, a lot of times people just want their day in court. And if they have their day to say what's on their mind, then that goes a long way in helping them feel like they got justice.
Sure. Well, during this race, you've got a challenger. Why Sarah Kirkman? Why does somebody want to vote for Sarah Kirkman?
Well, I think what's important in this race is that I'm the person who has been a prosecutor for my entire career. I've tried hundreds of cases, and I say this a lot. I've tried everything from a speeding ticket, and that's true. I have tried speeding ticket cases, all the way up to death penalty murder cases. So I'm the one who has the experience to know how to proceed with these cases in the courtroom. And what's important about that is we have to advise law enforcement officers, and we have to help to make the best cases that we can. Well, I'm the one who knows what's going to happen when you get into the courtroom and what we need to be able to proceed. Also, I'm the one who has to supervise all the assistant district attorneys. In my office, I have 13 of them currently, and I'm the one that they come to ask for advice about how to proceed on cases. I'm probably the longest serving prosecutor in Iredell and Alexander counties, and I'm just the person who has the experience to be able to do the job. Not only that, but I'm invested in the community. I'm from here, I'm involved in the community, I'm in Rotary, as you know, I'm in Fourth Creek Rotary, been there for over 20 years. I'm a board member of Dove House Children's Advocacy Center. I'm a board member of the Mooresville South Iredell Crime Stoppers, part of the Drug Alcohol Coalition. I'm part of the Domestic Violence Task Force of Iredell. I'm invested in the community, and I want to do whatever I can to make our community safer. I also, at different times, help to instruct law enforcement officers. I'll go to Mitchell and teach them, this is what makes a good case. This is what makes it good when you testify in court. These are things you need to know. I just think I'm the person with the experience to be able to effectively carry out the job.
Well, we appreciate your service up to this point. We appreciate your willingness to serve. Thank you for being here today, and we wish you well in the primary.
Thank you.